The Zivorian Empire's fleet loomed over New Montana like a swarm of mechanical locusts, their sleek black hulls blotting out the sunlight as they descended through the atmosphere. To the Zivorian commander, General Tarkis, this was just another routine operation. The humans were loud, defiant, and hopelessly outdated, perfect candidates for the Empire's usual brand of subjugation. Tarkis leaned back in his command chair, his mandibles clicking with amusement as he reviewed scans of the colony's defenses. Railguns, ballistic weaponry, and crude fortifications, an amusing relic of a bygone era. They still use projectiles, he said, his voice buzzing with disdain. The bridge crew chuckled in agreement. Tarkis waved a claw. Proceed with the operation. Show these primitives the meaning of imperial power. On the planet's surface, Captain Sam Tucker stared at the sky, his jaw tightening as the first Zivorian dropships breached the clouds. He stood atop a rocky ridge overlooking New Montana's main settlement, a patchwork of reinforced structures nestled in the valley below. Sam was a man of broad shoulders and a weathered face, his graying hair a testament to decades of combat experience. He adjusted the strap of his battle rifle and glanced at Sergeant Mike Rodriguez, who crouched nearby, assembling a tripwire explosive with the precision of an artist. "They're coming in heavy," Sam said, his voice steady despite the tension in the air. "You ready for this?" Rodriguez smirked, his scarred hands moving deftly. "Born ready, Cap. Let's give these bugs a welcome they'll never forget." Behind them, Corporal Jack Sullivan was perched on a high ledge, peering through the scope of his sniper rifle. The youngest of the group, Jack was eager and sharp, though his inexperience sometimes showed in his nervous chatter. "Think they'll really land in the open?" he asked, his voice crackling through the comms. "Seems too easy." Sam's expression hardened. "They think we're easy. That's their mistake." The first wave of Zivorian dropships touched down in a nearby field, their massive landing struts sinking into the dirt. Alien soldiers poured out in disciplined ranks, their insectoid forms glistening under the pale sun. Armed with plasma rifles and encased in energy shields, they advanced toward the colony with mechanical precision. From his vantage point, Sam observed the movement through binoculars. Rodriguez lighted up. A second later, the ground erupted in a cacophony of explosions as hidden charges detonated beneath the advancing Zivorian troops. Alien bodies were hurled into the air, their shields failing against the raw, kinetic force of the blasts. Amid the chaos, Sam and his team opened fire, their bullets finding gaps in the aliens' armor with surgical accuracy. Sullivan's rifle barked, and a Zivorian officer crumpled to the ground, a neat hole punched through its head. "One down," he muttered, already lining up his next shot. But the Zivorian response was swift and brutal. Their soldiers regrouped with terrifying efficiency, deploying aerial drones that rained plasma fire on the humans' positions. The ridge where Sam and Rodriguez were stationed became a storm of heat and light, forcing them to retreat. "Fall back to the second line," Sam shouted, his voice cutting through the roar of battle. The team regrouped in a narrow canyon leading to the colony, using its rocky walls for cover. Here, Dr. Frank Whitman awaited them, his lean frame hunched over a makeshift workstation. A civilian engineer by trade, Whitman had volunteered to help the resistance after seeing the devastation wrought by the Zivorian invasion. His specialty was improvisation, and his table was littered with jury-rigged devices, including modified drones and repurposed mining explosives. "They're pushing hard," Whitman said as Sam approached, sweat dripping from his brow. "I hope you've got a plan." Sam knelt beside him, quickly surveying the map spread across the table. "We're buying time, Frank. If we can thin their ranks and lure them into the colony, we'll have the upper hand." Whitman didn't look convinced. "Their tech's a century ahead of ours. How do you plan to counter that?" "With creativity," Sam replied, a grim smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "They're predictable. We're not." The sound of approaching drones cut the conversation short. Sullivan's voice came over the comms, tense but controlled. "Captain, we've got incoming. They're flanking from the west." "Damn it," Sam muttered. "Rodriguez, take your team and slow them down. Whitman, get those drones operational. We'll need every advantage we can get." As the battle raged on, it became clear the Zivorian forces were unprepared for the humans' unorthodox tactics. Rodriguez's team used hit-and-run maneuvers to harass the flanking units, planting explosives and retreating before the aliens could retaliate. Whitman's modified drones proved effective as well, disrupting the Zivorian comms and drawing fire away from the humans' positions. But the cost was steep. By nightfall, the colony's defenders were exhausted, their numbers dwindling. Sam gathered his team in a sheltered cavern to reassess their strategy. "They're underestimating us," he said, his voice resolute. "They think our tech is a joke, but we've shown them we can hurt them. Now we need to make it count." Rodriguez leaned against the wall, wiping dirt from his face. "You're thinking big, aren't you?" Sam nodded. "We can't win this by playing defense. We need to hit them where it hurts." Whitman frowned. "And how do we do that with what little we have?" A glint of determination flashed in Sam's eyes. "We use what they mock us for. If they think our old tech is a joke, we'll make them laugh all the way to hell." The room fell silent as the weight of his words sank in. Outside, the distant hum of Zivorian ships filled the air, a constant reminder of the enemy's overwhelming presence. But in that moment, the team felt something they hadn't in days: hope. Sam stood, his silhouette framed by the faint glow of the cavern entrance. "Get some rest. Tomorrow, we show them what humans are made of." As the team dispersed, Sullivan lingered by the entrance, his rifle slung over his shoulder. He looked out at the night sky, where the Zivorian ships hovered like malevolent stars. For the first time, he felt the weight of the fight ahead, but also the fire of determination burning in his chest. "They don't know what they've started," he muttered, a small smile creeping across his face. Above, the Zivorian fleet remained motionless, unaware of the storm brewing below. The dawn broke over New Montana, casting long shadows across the rugged terrain. Sam Tucker leaned against a boulder, sipping the last of his lukewarm coffee. Around him, the team moved with quiet purpose, their exhaustion concealed by determination. The sounds of hurried preparations echoed through the canyon, metal clinking, the hum of improvised machines, the occasional murmur of conversation. Every man here understood what was at stake. Sam's eyes shifted to the makeshift workbench where Dr. Frank Whitman crouched, surrounded by tools and scraps of salvaged alien tech. Frank's normally tidy appearance had deteriorated into a disheveled chaos, his grease-streaked face illuminated by the flickering glow of a jury-rigged plasma core. "We're running out of time, Frank," Sam said, his voice steady but firm. Frank didn't look up. "You can't rush innovation, Sam. This isn't just duct tape and wishful thinking. It's engineering under fire." Sam stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I'm not asking for a miracle, just a fighting chance. Can you deliver that?" Frank finally glanced up, meeting Sam's gaze. "If they don't fry me first, yeah. But it's not just the tech. We're going to need every ounce of creativity we've got." Nearby, Sergeant Mike Rodriguez tested one of their new mortars, adjusting the angle of the barrel and loading a shell with practiced precision. The weapon was a crude amalgamation of old Earth designs and Zivorian alloys, but it had the potential to bypass the enemy's energy shields. Rodriguez grinned as he hefted another shell, its jagged edges glinting in the morning light. "You know," he called out to Sam, "if this works, I'm naming the first one after you. Something classy, like Tucker's temper." Sam chuckled, the tension in his shoulders easing for a moment. "Just make sure it hits the target. We're not winning this on style points." Corporal Jack Sullivan, perched on a nearby ridge, scanned the horizon through his rifle scope. "They're moving," he announced, his voice calm despite the impending threat. "Looks like a full column heading straight for us. Armor, infantry, drones, the works." The mood shifted instantly, the weight of the situation settling over the group. Sam nodded, his mind already racing. This is it. We hit them hard, make them bleed, and force them to rethink their strategy. Rodriguez cracked his knuckles. About time we gave them something to rethink. The team sprang into action, deploying the mortars along the canyon's natural choke points. Each weapon was manned by a pair of soldiers, their movements quick and efficient despite the looming danger. Frank worked alongside them, fine-tuning the guidance systems and recalibrating the drones they'd repurposed to act as spotters. This better work, Frank muttered as he tightened a bolt. If those shields hold, we're toast. They won't hold, Sam replied, his tone leaving no room for doubt. They're designed for plasma, not this. Trust the plan. The Zivorian forces entered the canyon like an unstoppable tide, their insectoid troops marching in perfect formation. Heavy walkers flanked the infantry, their multi-legged frames bristling with plasma cannons. Overhead, drones buzzed in tight formations, scanning for hidden threats. The first mortar fired, its deep thud reverberating through the canyon. The shell arced through the air before slamming into the lead walker, detonating on impact. The explosion was catastrophic, sending fragments of alien metal and shattered rock flying in all directions. A stunned silence fell over the Zivorian ranks, broken only by the hiss of damaged machinery. Then chaos erupted. Reload and fire, Sam barked, his voice cutting through the din. The mortars roared to life, each shell finding its mark with devastating accuracy. The humans had anticipated the Zivorian response, using their drones to guide the projectiles toward weak points in the alien armor. The enemy's energy shields flickered and failed, unable to withstand the relentless barrage of kinetic force. Rodriguez let out a triumphant laugh as another walker collapsed in a fiery heap. Told you they wouldn't know what hit M. The Zivorian troops scrambled to adapt, their disciplined formation breaking apart under the relentless assault. Plasma fire rained down on the human positions, but the defenders were prepared, using the canyon's jagged terrain to shield themselves from the worst of it. Sullivan, from his elevated position, took precise shots at the advancing infantry, each round finding a target. They're falling apart, he reported, a note of satisfaction in his voice. Frank worked feverishly to keep the mortars operational, his hands a blur as he replaced damaged components and recalibrated targeting systems. Sweat dripped down his face, but he didn't falter. Another drone's down, he shouted, glancing at Sam. We're running out of eyes in the sky. Sam clenched his fists. We don't need eyes to finish this. Keep firing until they're out of range or out of troops. The battle raged for what felt like hours, the canyon echoing with the sounds of explosions and gunfire. Finally, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the Zivorian forces began to retreat, their once formidable column reduced to smoldering wreckage and scattered survivors. The humans didn't cheer. There was no celebration, only the grim satisfaction of survival. Sam surveyed the battlefield, his face etched with exhaustion. Status report, he called out. Rodriguez leaned against a boulder, his breathing heavy. Mortars are holding up, but we're low on ammo. Drones are toast. We hit them hard, but they'll be back. Frank sank to the ground, wiping his hands on his shirt. They underestimated us once. They won't make that mistake again. Sam nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon where the Zivorian ships still hung like ominous shadows. Let them come. We'll be ready. Sullivan climbed down from his perch, his rifle slung over his shoulder. What's the next move, Captain? Sam's expression hardened, his voice steady. We adapt. We hit them where it hurts. And we make sure they never forget who they're fighting. The team exchanged weary but determined looks. The battle had been won, but the war was far from over. Together, they began the arduous task of preparing for the next confrontation, their resolve unshaken. Above, the stars seemed to shine a little brighter, as if bearing witness to humanity's defiance. The night sky over New Montana was alive with the glow of burning wreckage. Smoke hung heavy in the air, mingling with the faint metallic tang of spent ammunition and scorched earth. Sam Tucker crouched on a rocky ledge, binoculars pressed to his eyes as he scanned the battlefield below. The Zivorian forces had regrouped, their ranks swelling with reinforcements that had landed just beyond the canyon's edge. "They're not pulling out this time," Sam muttered. Sergeant Rodriguez crouched beside him, inspecting the last of the mortar rounds. "They're mad. We embarrassed them, Cap. They're coming to wipe us out." Sam nodded grimly. "Good. Let's make sure they don't leave with anything to brag about." Corporal Sullivan's voice crackled over the comms. "Captain, they're moving into the canyon. Looks like a full assault, infantry, walkers, and air support." Sam didn't flinch. He glanced at Rodriguez. "Get the men into position. No mistakes. This is our last stand." Rodriguez saluted sharply and disappeared into the shadows, barking orders as he went. Sam remained on the ledge, his mind working through the strategy one last time. Their traps were set, their positions fortified, but he knew they were stretched to the breaking point. Victory would depend on precision, creativity, and the stubborn defiance that had carried humanity this far. Frank Whitman was hunched over his workstation in the central bunker, his hands flying as he fine-tuned the last of the improvised drones. "I hope you've got a miracle up your sleeve, Sam," he said without looking up. Sam's voice was calm but firm. "No miracles, Frank. Just men doing what we've always done, fighting smarter than the other guy." Frank glanced up, meeting Sam's gaze. There was exhaustion in his eyes, but also a spark of resolve. "Then let's make history." The Zivorian forces advanced into the canyon like a living wave, their glowing weapons casting an eerie light over the rugged terrain. Drones hovered overhead, scanning for human positions, while the massive walkers lumbered forward, their plasma cannons firing sporadically to clear a path. Sam waited until the bulk of their forces were deep within the canyon before giving the order. "All units, fire at will." The night erupted in chaos as the humans unleashed their trap. Mortars roared to life, their shells arcing overhead and slamming into the enemy ranks with devastating precision. The explosions echoed off the canyon walls, amplifying the destruction. Walker after walker crumpled under the onslaught, their advanced shields no match for the sheer force of the kinetic bombardment. Rodriguez was in his element, directing the fire teams with calm efficiency. "Focus on the big ones first. Make 'em feel it." Sullivan picked off drone after drone, his sniper rifle flashing in the darkness. "They're scattering, Captain. Looks like they're trying to regroup at the canyon's mouth." Sam's voice cut through the comms. "Not a chance." Rodriguez collapsed the north wall. A series of detonations rocked the canyon as pre-planted charges brought tons of rock crashing down, blocking the Zivorian retreat. Trapped and disoriented, the alien forces began to falter. Frank's modified drones buzzed through the chaos, delivering targeted strikes that disrupted enemy communications and disabled their remaining heavy weapons. One drone swooped low, dropping a makeshift explosive onto a cluster of Zivorian troops, scattering them like leaves in the wind. "We're holding," Frank shouted, his voice tinged with disbelief. But the Zivorian commander, General Tarkis, was not so easily defeated. From his command ship above, he barked orders to his remaining forces, deploying reinforcements equipped with heavy plasma cannons and shield disruptors. The air grew thick with energy as the new wave descended on the battlefield. Sam gritted his teeth as he watched the tide turn. "They're doubling down. We've got to end this now." Rodriguez's voice crackled over the comms. "What's the plan, Cap?" Sam glanced at Frank. "Can you rig the drones for one final run?" "Everything we've got." Frank hesitated, then nodded. "I'll need a minute." "You've got 30 seconds. As Frank worked, Sam relayed the plan to the team. "We're going to punch a hole straight through them. Rodriguez, cover the drones. Sullivan, take out their command units. This ends here. The drones launched in a synchronized swarm, weaving through the enemy ranks like a school of fish. Frank had rigged each one with an explosive payload, sacrificing their guidance systems for maximum firepower. Rodriguez and his team provided cover, their mortars laying down a relentless barrage that kept the Zivorian forces pinned. Sullivan's sniper rifle rang out, each shot silencing a critical target. The drones reached their mark, slamming into the Zivorian formation in a series of thunderous explosions. The resulting shockwave rippled through the canyon, toppling walkers and sending alien soldiers scrambling for cover. Sam seized the moment. Push forward. Take them down. The humans surged from their positions, rifles blazing. They moved with precision and purpose, cutting through the disorganized Zivorian troops like a scalpel. Sam led the charge, his battle rifle spitting fire as he carved a path toward the enemy's command unit. General Tarkis watched from his command ship, his mandibles clicking in frustration. He had underestimated these humans, dismissed them as primitives, and now his forces were being routed by their ingenuity and determination. Pull back, Tarkis ordered bitterly. This fight is lost. As the Zivorian ships lifted off, abandoning their troops to their fate, a cheer rose from the human ranks. The battlefield was littered with the wreckage of alien machines and the bodies of fallen soldiers, but New Montana still stood. Sam surveyed the scene, his chest heaving as he lowered his rifle. The cost had been high, but they had won. Frank approached, his face streaked with dirt and exhaustion. "We did it," he said, a note of disbelief in his voice. Sam nodded. "We showed them what humanity's made of. Now let's make sure they never forget." Above them, the stars shone brightly, a testament to the indomitable spirit of a species that refused to bow.